So we've got a GU Patrol here, conservative factory looking car, LS under the bonnet. Now, elderly gentleman owns this, had it for 17 years, used to have a draw set in the back here, converting it back to 3-row seating. With the LS, he's got exhaust drone and he's got heat issues, so the pipes on this thing run down the left-hand side. So he's got heat issues for the passenger and sound that we're going to contain for him. What we're going to do is put our deadener throughout. Even on the roof, the factory jute insulation is just double-sided tape. It's all come down. We'll put deadener on there, and then we're also going to put an acoustic foam. We're going to do the door skins. We'll show you some ins and outs with the door skins. We'll put our mass noise liner through the floor as a premium underlay. It's up the front on the Firewall. It's got the factory mass loaded vinyl, which finishes just below the accelerator brake pedal. We're going to carry it through, so this is going to be more like the Infinity model, follow that same luxury. Good thing is that's going to reduce heat, and it's also going to be waterproof. So if he does go and sink this thing in the puddle, he can be reassured he can just lift it up, air it out. It's not going to break down. We're going to get this in the shop. We'll start insulating it, run you through the products, and turn it around so we can put it back together and go cruising. So we've got the Patrol here. Now this is how the car come to us. So the customer's gone to the effort to strip it and then driven the car here with the seats in it. These cars are pretty simple to take apart, being Japanese. They're metric threads, hex heads, Phillips heads. What you can't see is usually a snap together fit. You just pull on the stuff, it comes apart. We're going to pull the seats out, and then the car's pretty much ready to go. We're going to start with the roof. Now the reason we'll start with the roof is that we don't want to cover all the floor with our insulation products and then stand all over it and put all that force on them while you're screwing around, twisting your feet, all that sort of thing. So we'll do the roof so it's done, and then we'll do the floor so it's done. The doors, we don't need to stand on the interior part of it. Put the seats back in, put the car back together, job done. So we're going to start with the roof. First thing we're going to do is clean it down. So a wax and grease remover or solvent base, white spirit. We're going to wipe it all down, get rid of this, put our dampening sheet on, and then we'll put an insulation foam on it. So let's go. So this is our roof skin covered with the stage 1 deadener. Now it's important with the deadener that when you stick it on the roof, particularly if you do get an air bubble that's trapped under there as you roll this stuff out, you're going to want to knife it and relieve the pressure. What will happen over time is if you don't effectively put it on and rub this in 100% that it's stuck down, you're going to get heat from the sun. If there's an air pocket in there, it's going to want to expand and it's going to want to fight the adhesive. Once it's stuck down and there's no air in it, that stuff's going to be stuck there forever. Now the factory Nissan roof, impressively, is a strong vehicle. It does have a lot of cross members, which is good. If we compared this to, say, a troop carrier, it's got less roof cross members and they're not glued to the skin, so they're a big drummy roof. The effect you get by putting the dampening sheets on it, it is a lot when it comes to torquing and twisting on the car. So the dampening sheet's done, that takes out the panel resonance. The fact that there's aluminium on this, there's going to be a small amount of heat reduction. However, what we're going to put over this next is our insulator, which is a closed cell foam. What it's going to do is two things. It's going to reduce the amount of heat transfer. So driving along in the peak of summer, you've got heat on your roof that just radiates through. By putting a foam underneath there, we've created a barrier that's going to help reduce that heat transfer. So the original shoddy or jute that the manufacturer put under here was just a few strips. And now their strips didn't cover this whole area, so you're going to have bleed areas there. What we're going to try and do is cover this whole area. We're not going to go over these because the packaging of the headliner, that it's designed to clip in, that we're not going to have the room. But we're going to go right up to the cross members and cover it from left to right. So we're going to blanket out any of that heat transfer. The other thing with the foam is inbound sound. We're standing in here in the moment and we're talking. The moment you've still got rigid surfaces, so those sound waves want to hit that and bounce around, refract. By putting a foam on there, what it's doing is softening those sound waves, that the rebound, is less, that we're drumming it down a bit. So every area that we can cover up is going to help reduce the sound. So we've got our roof totally covered 100% now with the insulator, so the foam and the deadener on there. Now we're going to move to the floor. Now you can see this is a top of the line Nissan Patrol, which you can see it's got dampening throughout as it is. What you're going to find if you've got the cheaper entry-level car, they're going to lean off on this dampening material and not run it throughout the vehicle. There's your opportunity, add it to it. Under the customer's directive with this one, he wants to deaden it throughout, including the wheel arches, quarter panels, doors. So we're going to cover this floor to the extent that it's going to have all dampening sheets throughout. So first thing you want to do is have a look at what's in here. Factory, this has got a hot melt bitumen. Now we look at this and it's stuck down perfect. You might find cars that have had heat issues, they've cooked it and baked it off where it's actually come off or gone brittle to a degree that you need to take it off because you're at risk of moisture and that sort of coming underneath. So just inspect it, have a look at it. If there's any sus areas, take it off. You can see over here in this area where there is remnants of, I guess, the jute or the sisal underlay. We want to clean that down because nothing's going to stick to it. What you do is get a heat gun. Then you can either vacuum the floor pan out, blow it out, get your wax and grease remover and just lightly wipe over it. Then it'll be clean. The self-adhesive product's going to stick to the surface. First thing we're going to do is get a wax and grease remover, which is a white-based solvent that's going to get rid of all the dust. If your car's been filthy and it's actually had mud and water in it because some of the grommets weren't in properly and you've done river crossings, you're going to want to blow it out, vacuum it out, get rid of all that stuff first. That's where we're going to wipe this down, make it all clean, and then we'll put the dampening sheets on. So we've got our door skin here, and you'll notice this one's had a cavity wax sprayed on it. Now that was put on from the dealership as an option. Sign him up, spend the extra money, we'll spray this stuff in the door. What they're trying to do here is spray a wax coating that's repellent, won't let anything adhere to it, water, that sort of thing. Now, the issue we're going to have is our dampening sheets aren't going to stick to it. Now, a quick way to test this is get masking tape being wax coated crepe paper with an adhesive on it. If this doesn't stick to it, nothing self-adhesive is going to stick to it. So the test is this. And then you'll see it doesn't stick to it at all. So this stuff we've got to get off. Now, I can scrape most of it off there. What I'm going to do is get a plastic, I'm not going to use a steel, a plastic scraping tool, scrape the bulk of it off. Then I've got some mineral terps here in a spray bottle that we're going to spray down, dilute it, and basically water it down till it's all gone brushed off. Do your tape test. If your tape sticks to the clean steel, your dampening sheet's going to stick to it. So it's vital we get that stuff off, otherwise your dampening sheets are not going to work. So once you've scraped as much as you can off here, you can see we've got a fair bit off. I'm going to get in there with our mineral terps. That's going to break it down. Now, we did try a wax and grease remover and found out that the material didn't break down, it sort of balled up. So led us to go, okay, well, the next thing is it's either going to be solvent-based white spirit, which is going to be your metho or your wax and grease or your thinners, or it's going to be your mineral-based, which is mineral terps. This does break down a lot of oily-based products, so it works quite well. We've cleaned it down as much as we can with the mineral terps. Now, we do find that mineral terps does leave a bit of an oily residue, so just out of habit, what I like to do is get a wax and grease remover, white-based spirit, and then give it the final clean. What you will find is that rag that we did use with the mineral terps, there's still going to be a smear to a degree of that cavity wax on there. So getting another clean rag, spraying it down with this, or however you've got your wax and grease remover in a tub if you dip it, spray it on, and then give that the final clean with a new rag. You're going to want to let that dry, air out before you start sticking stuff on. But you can see there our steel is fresh, nice and clean. You can give it a test. I suppose the comparison is with just an adhesive. How well does that stick? And you can see there, you're back to a nice surface that's ready to go. So our door's ready to go. Now, the reason we put our dampening sheets on the door is you can see this door skin is the outer sheet metal. It's got an intrusion bar through the middle, which sometimes they float, sometimes the outer skin is glued with a lightweight foam. We tap on the door, and there's a fair bit of panel resonance. That's going to vary on the exterior styling of the car. The more curve you got, the more tension the steel's got, the less likely it is. The flatter the door is, the more it's going to want to go in and out. That all adds to frequency, driving the car, everything moving around. So we're going to aim for these areas, and we're going to space the mats out throughout that section and up where we can get. Now, it is a bit of a challenge getting in because each car is different and you're limited with the access and the sheet size. Don't stress that you need to try and cover it with one single skin. What you can do is just cut your dampening sheets down into manageable tiles, get them in there, get them stuck down, make sure you've rubbed out all the edges, so it's effectively stuck down. It's like bolting on, I guess, a shock absorber. If you just do your nut up and leave it all loose, it's going to rattle around. What you're trying to do is get the dampening sheet stuck down so there's no air bubbles, all edges, that it's actually joined to the surface. That's going to back up the steel and take out that panel resonance for you. Now we've got our deadener on the door. We'll tap on this, give you a demonstration. So you can see that's solided up. So the whole door skin we've done. When you shut this door, it's not going to rattle. When you're driving, the panel vibration is going to be controlled. The other thing you can do is choose a couple of areas, tap around, and you go, okay, I could stick a little bit here. There's no need to cover this entire thing. Some of the audio guys like to do that, but keep in mind, they're putting speakers in, they're trying to drive a lot of sound through there, that they're trying to stop any panel rattling. What you want to also keep in mind is stuff like this that the manufacturers put in to stop rattles of these door mechanisms. Make sure they're still in there. If not, you can analyze that, put some foam under there. What we're going to do with this door, because the owner originally had a cavity wax, we've got an aerosol version of it here. If you want to run this because it's something that you know you're going to get water up into the doors and you're concerned with it, put your deadener sheets on, and then we're just simply going to spray over the deadener sheets. Our goal is to get this cavity wax though to drip down into the hem part of the door skin. That's where any water is going to build up. So us spraying that wax on there, it's going to put a repellent that the water's going to sit on top and then drain out of these drain holes. So you would remember when we cleaned this door out, we washed out what was in there. So we're simply going to replace it with this aerosol. These things also come with an additional hose that if you want to put it inside your rocker panels and load up those things so you don't get any rust inside, you can poke that in there. So we've got our stage 1 in on the floor pan. The next stage is our stage 2, which will form our underlay. Now this product's called the mass noise liner. What it is a mass loaded vinyl, and then we've got a closed cell foam underneath. You can see here the original Firewall blanket on this vehicle, and most vehicles, they all use a mass loaded vinyl, and then they'll have a decoupling layer underneath. This has got some sort of woven polyester by the looks of it. You can see down here in the front area, this has gone brittle and cracked. Now, I suspect that's from the headers and the heat transfer coming through, that it's broken down the material. High-end luxury saloons, they'll run this same mass-loaded vinyl all the way through as a premium carpet underlay. We're following that philosophy here, where we're going to use our mass noise liner. This is a sheet I've cut in half. I'm going to feed it in. We're going to work out how far up we go up the Firewall here, and then I'm going to relief cut it and tuck it up as high as I can over the console. Try and blanket out the whole area. If you take on the philosophy, this is like a bucket. If it's got a hole in it, it's going to leak. So anywhere we don't blanket out the sound, you've got risk for the sound come through. You're always going to have a weak point around a shifter, more so on a manual vehicle, where it's typically just a rubber boot. That's going to allow sound to absorb through. Some manufacturers have created under that gear boot itself a foam filter, which will help reduce noise. You've got a basic car, like the full drive shifter over here, it's just rubber underneath, so we're going to try and cover it up as much as we can. That comes down to packaging within reason, how your console mounts, those sorts of things you're going to have to keep clear of those areas. Another tip for you is if you do cut, like I'm going to cut a check out in here, try not to cut square joints, always put a radius in there. It'll stop that tear factor. If I cut it square there, it's going to want to rip down there. So we'll try and cut a radius. You can see we cut around this mount. We try to go as high as we can on the Firewall. I'll keep working along here and we'll get this fitting nice. So down here you can see that it wants to buckle, so the material actually wants to shrink up and go somewhere. You can either cut it here. Easiest way, I know I'm going to need clearance around this footrest. I'm going to cut that back, butt these up so they look. If I overlap it, I'll simply get an offcut like this, peel the backing off like that, and then glue that down so it's got like a bandage set up on it. So we'll get this bit sorted. You can see I've just butted those two up, but what I'm going to do is get this off cut and make a piece that pretty much goes over there like that. So you can see here for this bandage piece that I'm making, I'm just pulling off the foam but leaving the adhesive on it. That's going to make it, it'll stick about 70% to the vinyl. However, the good thing is if you need to pull it out, you can just lift it off. So we peeled that off. We've got a jointing tape kit coming soon. It's probably about 4 weeks away, which will simply have a roll of the mass loaded vinyl with no adhesive and come with super glue. So it's something you could just bandage on there. There we go, stuck down. So that finishes it off. I've finished short here on the transmission tunnel, so I'm going to do the same thing where I want to try and blanket under there. There is a little piece that you can see here, which is factory. Same thing, they've used it's thinner, it's probably like half a mil thick mass loaded vinyl with their cotton shoddy, whatever you want to call it, underneath. I'm going to try and tuck up under here. In theory, noise from your transmission engine's going to come up through there, so we want to try and blanket that out. I've got an offcut here that I can figure looks like it fits reasonably well. So the only other bit I'm a bit off with is this bit here. So this is our cyan acrylate glue. I'm going to glue that on there, and that's going to be welded fast forever. This is going to help the LS. On this setup, he's got the headers run, or the exhaust, sorry, runs down the left-hand side. The pipes on the right-hand side cross over about here and then go into a single system on that side. Tomorrow, we're going to put a heat shield under there too. So the best way to control your heat is at the source. We're going to put a 180-degree heat shield over the pipe. So any rising heat we're capturing in that 180 degrees before it actually comes to the floor pan, creates a problem on the inside. This will help, but if we can get it at the source, you're going to, tenfold reduction. We've got a curve kit, what we call a curve kit here, which is an embossed aluminium. Now this is a universal thing. It comes as a curve. You can basically flatten it out, or you can make it suit whatever size you want. Also comes with some brackets here, which are a stainless bracket. You can feed a hose clamp through these guys. Put them wherever you want around your pipe, and then that gives you ability to run this metric 6 screw through it and bolt it on. If these holes don't work, you can drill a hole wherever you need to. We're going to fit this one up under the Patrol, so what I'm going to do is jump underneath. We're going to feed it up over the pipe. Your pipe is not always straight, so I'm expecting to get around and bend this and shape this a bit and form it to the pipe so it fits. So we'll jump underneath and we'll get that done. Yeah, the floor pan's quite forgiving in a GU. You can see there's a couple of gaps here. This one's actually come up pretty good. I'm going to make, you can see here I'm talking about the gearbox. This just singly, that rubber, nothing else. So any sound you got's going to come up, it's going to come straight through there and go through your vinyl. That's your weak point. Looking at this shifter, it only moves forward and rearward, so we've got all this area. I'm going to bandage another piece up there and put it tight as I can there to try and reduce the amount of sound that can come up through there. We've gone right up to this top hat section. You don't go over this because obviously your carpet's got to sit over here. The thickness in this is around 8 millimeters. Now we're going to remove the carpet underlay, which is similar dimension, that we're not actually going to come up with the carpet. The carpet's still going to fit. So the next sheet of mass noise liner, we're going to butt up here, cut around these couple of objects, run all the way to the back. When we get to the cargo area, we're going to use a thicker backed product called our mass noise liner. So to clarify, this is the mass noise liner light. In the cargo area, we'll use the mass noise liner. It's just a bit thicker in those cargoes areas like vans, that sort of thing. It works well. So we've got our second sheet of mass noise liner light. The first sheet, we've done the front drivers and occupant area. Now we're going to go back here. So this sheet, I'm just going to lay in here and just figure out where we cut it. So we've got our 2 sheets of our mass noise liner lighting, which has got us up just under the rear cushion area. Now something with this you want to do is try and datum it in an area. So I drop this whole sheet in here and sort of pushed it hard into this concave here, which set us as a point to get down to the front and then let everything everywhere else flow. I've got a bit here which I'm going to get I'll get an offcut and overlap it and just glue it back to itself, so that's blanketed out. There's areas like this which are impractical to try and get under. Now this rear seat area is an interesting one where I've had to relieve it here. So think of this as like a flat pattern, like you typically make a cardboard box out of. At some point you're going to need to relieve it because it needs to grow. So what I've done is cut it through there. We've got another sheet that we're going to have excess to go up to here. Any offcut, I can make a nice bandage solution through here. Being mindful of these clips where this plastic trim is going to want to clip in there, we need to finish up short. So I'm actually a bit long here. I've got to cut that back probably through there. So just here I'm working around the seat mounts. Now the seats look like they're going to mount in these 2 points here. So what I'm going to do is I've measured a center line off that bolt, which the sheet's moved a little bit again, so that's the center line there. And I can choose a point down here to go, okay, that's the center of the hole. Then if I do that, it gives you a nice datum. I'll do that on the other side. Then I'm going to use my steel rule and draw some probably 50 by whatever it is, 100 mil nice slots out of this, cut them with radiuses. I'll pull that out of the car to do it, put it back in, and it'll shadow over those so the seat can go back in over it. That'll get this down to there. Then we'll run our next sheet up to the back. So we'll get going with this. So quick little tip here is where we've got this material coming up here, I lay it around here. It needs a relief cut. What my plan was to run it down here. So I'll put a relief cut up here, which has actually created that wedge. But if I put this down and create a pleat here, what I'm going to do is cut that straight up there. That relaxes the material. Here. Just going to overlap that on there. Cut this guy down here. Gets that to flow around the corner. You can grab a pen or even just use the back of the scissors here. Mark that line down there. So you can see that's allowed that to flow down. We've got a nice fitment here. What I'm going to do is cut a couple of strips. I've cut a piece here where I did the other side, and I'm going to stick that over there, and then we'll just overlap that and it's done. You can see here we've joined a piece here. Now a trick here, what I've done is simply cut off the foam and use the adhesive on the back of there so it overlaps it. And that can just stick down. So we've got our floor covered now from the base of the Firewall all the way to the back of the tailgate. Now we use the mass noise liner light up into this cargo area, and then in this cargo area we've got our mass noise liner, which you can see under here is the eggshell version. It's just got a thicker foam underneath. Now where it works well is in these cargo areas with this longitudinal rib stampings. They're typically a bit more aggressive, like in some of the troop carriers, that sort of thing. So it's going to fall in here and squash up nicely, particularly if you're running a draw set, that sort of thing. This will work as a gasket, as a sound barrier. So the same templating method we used up the front, where we've just traced around the arches and tried to cover and blanket that whole back area. Where this is really effective, cars like your Subarus or your V8s that have got exhaust drone, that sort of thing, using this as a barrier, as a blanket to absorb any sound come up through. So this is quite durable and it's removable. So that's the car done. We'll put the interior back together and then take it for a drive.